to the Turn 1 podcast. This is episode 12 plus 1, also known as episode 12 plus 1. How the devil are you all? You're all good. We will be talking about Hungary today, as well as the W series, a little feature brought in. But firstly, let me just introduce my really, really good people. Will, Lard, Emma, and Henry. Gentlemen and lady, how are you all?
Hello.
Oh, hello.
Hi.
You're good.
We're people now? Is that a thing?
I couldn't think of
Really
anything
good
off the top of my head.
People.
Yeah.
Thanks for that glowing review there, John.
How about your esteemed hosts or something?
Colleagues,
Yeah,
guests.
you're above average colleagues.
Hello, welcome along to the Turn 1 podcast, episode 12 plus 1. How was that? Was that a better intro? They've gone. Something's not right. There we go. Henry is a twat. There. This is a great start to the podcast, isn't it? I'll do it post. Yeah. Anyway, let's continue along the way. How are you guys all right? Yeah, you had a good week?
Yeah, I've had a pretty decent week, to be fair.
Nice to see you feeling better.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it's an awkward thing having the virus just come up and mug you during the week.
It's never a good thing, is it?
So, no, not really. It's sort of just hung around and went,
Very rude.
So,
very. But
what about?
I'm rested. I'm back.
That's always good to hear. What about yourself, Emma? How are you? You all right?
I'm good, thank you very much. How are you, Tracker?
I'm very good, thank you. I must point out to everyone that Emma is our new regular member of the Turn 1 podcast as well. So
Hello.
there we go. So you got to put up with me, I'm afraid.
Damn it.
How's Will?
Oh, I'm fine. Eh?
You're fine.
Fine.
You're fine.
Yeah.
Fine. And Henry?
Good evening. How are you? You well?
You well?
Thank you.
I'm good, thank you. So, yeah, let's crack on. Let's talk about let's talk about Hungary, shall we? Interesting race. What do you guys make of it? What do you think?
Interesting. It was very good.
Hmm.
Again, it was another of those races this year that I can say has been exciting, really interesting, and it sort of turned around from earlier in the year when we were just complaining about how dull the races were.
Yeah.
But it wasn't necessarily interesting and exciting in the same way as Germany, in the same way as Silverstone, or even Austria.
Hmm.
For the first half, it was more sort of tactical.
It was, wasn't it?
Mm.
It's a very interesting. I think that is the key word for that race. It was interesting. Will?
Yeah. It's one of those that bubbles under the surface. You watch the race and you think there's not much going on, but it's all behind the scenes. It's all very, putting in good lap times, getting in the right positions for strategy calls. I really enjoyed it. It's the sort of race that I find exciting and enjoyable to watch.
Yeah.
Some people, there's not a lot of on-track overtaking, although there's a couple of good moves in there. The Toro Rossos, Hamilton, Max, Charles and Vettel. There were some good moves, but a lot of it was strategy, and it was enjoyable.
Yeah. Emma?
I agree with Will. It wasn't a classic, and it wasn't a race that casuals would really enjoy. But in terms of the overall team perspective, the strategy was really interesting to see unfold. But it was definitely a race of two halves in a sense. You've got Red Bull and McLaren at the front, and then everyone else bringing up the rear because we're just such there was definitely two races going on.
Yeah, it really was, because it was. Let's talk about. We'll go through it first, and talk about the lap one incident that happened, and that was with this man that we got on screen here, Valtteri Bottas. Now, he's been acclaimed by the people who watch this, the people who follow us on Twitter, as the idiot of the week for this week. And there was some video footage from the helicopter that showed that it was Valtteri's fault for the damage to the front wing. Given the damage to that front wing, should Mercedes have called him in earlier at the end of lap one?
They would see how on the telemetry how badly it was affecting him. So they must have seen. Well, yeah, he damaged his wing, but it's not that bad, so keep him out.
Yeah,
I think he managed to keep going with the bad wing. I think he'd managed to find a compromise with the bad wing before, and then he just obviously they told him to box, so he boxed.
Problem is, position is key, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. It's
and
a
that's why
go-kart.
they didn't pull him in.
Because it's effectively Hungary's, everyone refers to as like a karting track, really, isn't it? It's very narrow at points. There's not a lot of overtaking to be done, unless you're going to be quite bold going into turn 3 and obviously down to turn 1. But there's not really that much of an overtaking opportunities elsewhere on the circuit.
Yeah, not unless you're really, really brave trying to get around people.
Yeah.
They also call it Monaco without the walls.
That's true. But I think
It was
go on. Well, sorry.
because there's a lot of close racing still. There's a lot of cars following each other, having to manage brake temps, but they were still within like a second of each other. You still got like Hamilton and Max at the front, and Hamilton was following Max very close. You'd still got the two Ferraris reasonably close together, but I think that was a lot of strategy involved to keep them apart until the overtake. And then the rest of the field was all quite close, really, apart from the strategies. So, and there was some really good wheel-to-wheel racing, which we didn't see elsewhere, even though it's a narrow track.
Yeah.
It's a strange one. I think either the drivers are like, it's mid-season, let's do something exciting and, go with a bang, or all the drivers seem to have got a feel for the cars, I want to say. Doing where to stick them.
There's the title for the podcast.
Like the Toro Rossos were knowing what they could do and were kept in the lines and this, that, and the other. And, it was good racing.
Toro Rosso showed Haas how it's got to be, how the overtaking should be done.
What lap was that? Lap 18, wasn't it? Between Albon and Kvyat. There was some brilliant wheel-to-wheel. Very much a lot of respect from those two drivers to give each other room around that. What was it? All the way up to turn 4, wasn't it? From turn 1. It was absolutely amazing to watch.
Yeah, it was 4 corners, and then, Albon had to back out because he was off the track otherwise.
Yeah. Full respect there. Absolutely full respect. And you're right. You're right, Henry. They've proper shown how it should be done with racing instead of the way that Haas do it all the time, which is just bang into each other. Which Crofty, did you hear Crofty's joke, by the way, in the commentary?
No.
Magnussen's getting married this week. I wonder if Roman's been invited or whether he's going to crash the wedding.
Well, Magnussen nearly hit Ricardo, didn't he?
I thought it was a great joke from Crofty. You say Magnussen nearly hit Ricardo?
Yeah, Ricardo was going to make a move on him down into turn 1, and he just went from one side of the track to the other to block him.
Right.
Him.
Yep, that was a silly move on his part.
Magnussen was doing a lot of weaving in the braking zone. A lot of it.
Yeah.
I think if there'd been a crash there, he would have been in trouble, possibly.
Apparently, he did get warned by the stewards. There was a warning given.
Was there?
Right,
okay.
He's very aggressive with his spending, regardless of position.
Well, it's sort of what you want to see, but sort of not, because it was dirty, but you can understand why. It's, again, Haas needs some points, and he's doing the best he can for that team.
Yeah. And he's the one kind of holding up, propping them up the table, really, isn't he? Because I've got the tables on the stream, by the way, so I can actually look at them a little bit later on. I actually did some homework. And yeah, without him, I think they had 8 points. I think Grosjean's tallied a total of 8 points, which is not a lot, really. I mean, hang on.
Not at this point.
Let's have a look. I'll bring up the championship. So Kevin Magnussen has 18 points. He's located in P13. Roman Grosjean P17 with 8 points.
So he's beaten 2 Williams and a underperforming Alpha.
He's beaten Hulkenberg, Albon, Perez, even though I can't spell Toro Rosso because I've gone Toro Rosso on the screen, by the way. I have noticed that spelling mistake. He's beaten Perez, Antonio Giovinazzi, his teammate, obviously, and both Williams, yeah. So 1 Renault, 1 Toro Rosso, 1 Racing Point, 1 Haas, 1 Alpha, and both Williams.
That's bad.
That is bad, isn't it?
It's nothing to be proud of.
Nope, definitely not.
It's a pity that the only person who hasn't scored so far this season is George Russell.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, let's talk about Williams. They've certainly picked up their game. They've come back, haven't they? They've kind of shown that the upgrades are starting to come through, and they're starting to lose that drag factor that they've had all throughout this season, and they might scrape another point towards the end of the season. What do you guys think?
It's showing signs of promise, but if they're taking one step forward, then other teams are taking 2.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's too early to start really, really saying that Williams is back on the move, back up the back, because
they're still a bit behind, aren't they? Compared to everybody else.
Hungary is that sort of track, though, where you don't need your full horsepower for it. We saw that with the Arrows when Damon Hill was first for almost all the race.
Yeah.
You don't need to have a Mercedes or Ferrari at full power to get round there quick.
No.
I think with Williams, they're probably going to use the rest of this season to test their package and then go full beans next year, because it's going to be very tough for them to scrape many points.
I mean, George has been putting his weight, but I just don't see what Kubica is bringing to that team.
Other than sponsorship, supposedly experience, but is he really bringing experience from having 9 years out of the formula?
You don't know how much value he's adding behind the scenes in terms of like telemetry analysis and all that sort of stuff, because Claire Williams has said that he brings an awful lot of value to the team. May not necessarily be on a track, and clearly there's a lot of sponsorship that's come with him, but you don't lose that knack of looking at all the numbers and the telemetry and stuff and giving valuable feedback to the engineers. And if it was that bad, they'd have got rid of him by now.
I think it's just the fact he's so far off the pace. Is his telemetry actually useful? Because, I mean, he's being lapped by his own teammate near enough. It's not ideal, is it?
Do you know what? Williams need a Kimi Raikkonen. That's what they need. Someone who's going to, Kimi, all his ex-engineers say the same thing about Kimi. He'd go into so much detail when setting the car up with his engineer. He'd be an engineer even though he's not qualified to be an engineer, and that's what they need. They need like Kimi to go in there and just go, this is what we need to do. This is what's wrong with the car, and this is how we need to improve it.
Yeah, agreed. They need,
but it's all dependent on if they've got the money or the resources to then go out and do that, or whether they'll just write it off and start next year's car already.
Well, it was like with having Alonso there, with the first 3 years of McLaren with the Honda/Renault partnership, and then identifying, yes, it was a disaster and we've lost a wasted talent, but then showing that behind the scenes, there was a lot of changes that happened because of the drag and everything like that. The numbers weren't coming back the way, and having that experience from Alonso to help with the team, the stuff that he would have done 2 years ago would be reflected on the car that's built today.
Yeah, it's always a long-term plan. There's no
Hmm.
quick overnight fix for it. It's you sow the seeds for the comeback now, and we may see Williams up the track up the grid in maybe 2-3 years time.
Maybe. What do you guys think?
I think what will help Williams is the budget cap. I think that will help Williams in a short-term gain because it'll bring everybody closer to what they potentially spend each year. But then they need to obviously bring people in, and can they afford to bring people in or go, down the R&D? Because obviously when what's his name went with Rev Massa today, he said that they would do everything, but they wouldn't spend the money in R&D. So it's up to them what they need to do.
Hard one to call, really, isn't it? I mean, it's a team that's fallen very much from grace.
To me, it just feels like there's an awful lot of elements that they need to bring back in line, whether it's the resource aspect in terms of the people, how much money they can spend on certain elements, which clearly they don't have an awful lot of, because they would be performing a little bit better, a little bit quicker. But yeah, we all know this sport's unrelenting in terms of development. And if you haven't got much funding, then it gets really hard.
Yeah. And thinking about it, I don't know. I mentioned this a couple of podcasts ago, but is Claire Williams right for the job?
Yeah,
They won't.
I think she is.
I think they bring anybody else in. Will.
Because think of it this way: where's she been sitting on the learning tree? Her dad.
Yeah, but the same thing could be said about learning to drive. Like Michael Schumacher, and you got Ralph Schumacher. About drivers.
Yeah, but that was more his brother rather than his son.
What about Peter
his son
Schmeichel and
Mick
Kasper
is-
Schmeichel? Let's put a football reference. Peter Schmeichel, one of the best goalkeepers in the world. Kasper Schmeichel's,
Kasper Schmeichel's won the Premier League title as well as his dad.
Yeah, you can't pass on physical skills, but you can pass on a mental mindset.
Exactly.
I mean, there is another analogy you could put into this, and that's Ric Flair and his son, David Flair, who was fecking useless as a wrestler. but then again, you look at his daughter, Charlotte Flair, and how fast she is in there. So you got that balance. She's taken to it like a duck to water, and she's really good. She takes after her dad.
I think what you need to look at is what is Claire's actual role and what is the role of everyone else. She's a leader of that team. She's not there to have all the answers. She's there to have the right people in the right roles to do their jobs and to bring that package all together. And therefore, I think she's in the right role.
Yeah, she's a people person. That's the point of Williams, right? She organises the team. She doesn't organise the car. I know she probably knows some technical stuff about the car. I don't see her going into the wind tunnel and going, this needs changing, that needs changing. She's not that sort of person. And it's probably best the team principal isn't like that.
Right. I think it was one of those questions that needed asking, though, isn't it? It's like...
a lot of people have mentioned it, haven't they? They've questioned whether she's right for that position.
Yeah.
But I think everyone wants to place a finger on a reason why that team's not working, and it's just an easy target because that's what everyone's like.
I think the structure of Williams, as well as other teams, isn't really suited for modern day F1. Look at what McLaren have done. They've brought in a guy to run the team, and then brought in a designer to design the car. And if they were building their own engines, they'd bring somebody in to look after the engine department. I think that's the way forward, if that makes sense. I think you'll have your own people in charge or whatever, but Williams can't afford to even do that at the minute.
No, they've like I say, they've kind of fallen from grace. But this fall's been going for a little while, though, hasn't it? Probably since they lost they had the backing from Martini, that gave them a lot of money. But then they lost their Martini sponsorship at the end of last year.
And they were going to get Rich Energy, and how that turned out. I bet they're laughing at that about that,
Yeah.
Yeah.
aren't they?
That's
Do you know what
very
I mean?
true.
If they had Rich Energy, that would have made them, and the car was just bad. That would have been like a lot more pressure on Williams.
That could have made them fold.
And I don't need that right now.
No.
They just need to be left alone. Like, when I say left alone, they just need no media on them, and just media knowledge that their car is not the best, and just let them get on with the job.
Yeah. So we can't. This team can't slip away from the grid. Surely, this team's going to survive.
All depending on how much money's coming in, how much money's going out. That's going to be in it, really.
Right.
Well, they're going to sort of what Manor did and take over the F1 experience. Because, I mean, Williams have got a lot of prestige, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
You know?
The
Can't
question,
see them racing if this is what they're going to come up with.
the question will be is if somebody was interested in either buying Williams outright or putting a stake in it, would they take it, or would they be too what's the word to use? Or would they be too they wouldn't take the help. Do you know what I mean? They wouldn't take the help even though it would help them in the long run. If
Yeah,
that
they
makes
can't be
sense.
too obstinate on it.
Would they not take the help to be because they're too proud, or would they just not sell at all? But do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I see what you mean. I don't think. I mean, they've always said. I mean, this is going back to last year as well, when Claire Williams had a press conference with her. Well, had a team conference where she said that they were never going to be the Mercedes B team. They'll never do that.
Which is fair enough.
Yeah, but would they take on investment to help them? I think if desperation came in, I think they would, because they wouldn't want to see the team disappear off the grid, like, for example, Sauber. Sauber, the name effectively is gone. It's Alfa Romeo Racing.
But that was part of the agreement, wasn't it? When Alpha became their main title sponsor, was that they would take over at the end of the season.
Mm-hmm.
That was the deal. I think they're probably too proud to. I don't mean that in a nasty way. They're too proud to probably ask for help. They'd rather do it on their own.
But don't they also have backers in the Middle East?
I don't know.
I thought they did, you know. This is where I'm going to Google. Whilst I'm Googling, what's going on in this chat, Henry?
Karloff says, yeah, but Charlotte is exactly like Rick, for better and for worse, Lard.
Yes and no. I mean, she wasn't out partying and jet flying and wheeling, dealing, limousine riding, kiss stealing like her dad. But yeah, I can see where he has the point.
Michael Patterson says, I'm thinking that without his constant crashing into teammates, Grosjean would be a valuable addition to a midfield team. But he also sees my point of view. Michael Patterson, it's nice to have you back on board for once. Right.
Fighting on.
The Royal Cloud makes a very good point here. He says Claire was all right when they were winning. You've got to remember, too, what is it, 3 years ago they were up there? 3 or 4 years ago they were up there?
Yeah, and people were complaining they just weren't going in for the kill in their race strategy 2 or 3 years ago.
Yeah.
When Rob Schmidley was, was the chief engineer.
Yeah.
Good old Rob Smedley.
So, yeah, I mean, I think just talking about Williams, we've gone right off subject here. I think they're kind of in our season review. We'll have to get to that because we're running short on time before we've got to actually end the podcast, which is we're actually against the time limit today. What else we got? Bad pit stop. Yeah, I've got this down. So McLaren had probably the only bad pit stop of the whole race with Norris. Cost him a lot of points there. Really, McLaren were up for some good points there.
Yeah, once again, Norris let down by forces out of his control.
Yeah, it was a problem with the wheel gun, wasn't it?
Yeah.
The heat or something like that, did they blame it on again? So no, Mercedes had a slowish stop, which was like 4 seconds. Slowish in terms of pit stops, but they blame that on wheel gun and the heat and the wheel nut, not locating properly.
Yeah.
Similar problem Haas had Melbourne 2 years. Well, what they blamed anyway. But still putting a solid performance with Norris.
Yeah, it is. I mean, he finished P9, so which was a good, like you say, a good solid performance. I mean, he was fighting with Bottas for a long time.
Yeah. Just makes you think how many points he would have ended up with if it wasn't for all these things that were out of his control.
So many DNFs that weren't his fault.
Yeah. But that's a sport, isn't it?
It is.
At least he's finished more races than Ricciardo did last year.
That's true. That's very true. And then the other thing before we get on about the second half of that race, what on earth was with Ferrari? Where was their pace? Ferrari was just, what was it, 1 minute? They finished 1 minute behind or over a minute behind?
Yeah.
And that included...
It's just a race pace. It's just a race pace. They haven't got a race pace. They're kind of like Haas. Do you know what I mean? They could be quick over one lap, and even that's doubtable at the best of times. But race, they're nowhere.
Definitely would. Definitely.
It's like they've got no cornering speed or something because they can't sustain any form of decent speed. It feels like
There's a nice mix of curves in Hungary, and they didn't seem to suit any of them.
Yeah, exactly.
There's short, medium, and long corners, really, when you think about it. And they weren't faster in any sector. They weren't challenging. They weren't topping the speed traps. Did they just set it up wrong? They didn't put enough downforce on it. Gearbox ratio poor, or is that car just a bit crap?
Yeah, wasn't it Martin Brundle that said it felt like a drag racing car rather than an actual Formula One one? Because it's great in a straight line, but everything else, oh dear.
So it's carrying too much drag on it. It's not slippy enough.
But it's anyway, they seem to be able to get the tyres to work with a bit more downforce. Draggy downforce they've put on it, because they can't come up with anything that will work in a quick enough time that's slippy and downforcey. That's so technical, Will.
What's happened is last year, up to I think was it Singapore, they had overall the quickest car on the grid, yeah.
Yeah.
And then what Mercedes has done is they've learned from that and taken that philosophy on board this year, and Ferrari have just gone, we're going to focus on the engine, but they haven't focused on anything else.
It's like they've totally switched, isn't it?
Yeah, it's not having the best engine, but you need everything else to help make the car quick.
Yeah, exactly. And that's so they've kind of just thought, give it more horsepower. Let's see if this thing will go any faster.
But that makes sense because Benotto is a engine man, isn't he?
Yeah.
But again, he probably needs to support. As I said about Williams, he probably needs a guy to come in and design the car, lead the design team, and he probably needs somebody to come in on the engine side so he can just be the team principal.
Yeah, a lot of the team depends on the team principal. If you look at the characters of the team principal doing well and the ones that aren't doing so well, it does speak quality, really.
Agree.
Yeah. Ferrari, they just like...
They've got the added pressure of being like the Italian national team as well, haven't they?
Yeah.
So you know that if they don't win it or come second this year, then they will do the short-term thing, which would be sack people, when they should be looking at the long-term and putting somebody in there, taking the pain, say, this year or next year, and then maybe from 2021 having a chance of winning races or winning it or being up there for a championship.
but they've been doing that for years and they're still not learned.
No.
Right. I mean, hiring people that are from your road car team who may not have a clue about F1 doesn't really help in that sense.
Well, it's like Fernando Alonso left Ferrari to go to McLaren because he believed that he was not going to win a championship at Ferrari. Just face it.
Clever
Yes, he
man.
didn't win a championship at McLaren. We know that, but he's told the truth there, isn't he? They haven't won a championship since up until he retired. And look at this year, miles behind.
I think it's the fact that I haven't even won a race,
No,
and it just goes, what are they doing?
That makes it more worse. The fact that they could probably just get away with it if they'd won, say Bahrain or whatever, or Canada. They could probably get away with how bad the car, well, not how bad, but how bad the race pace is. But the fact, like you say, they've not won a single race already this year just makes it even worse.
do you think they had this kind of this like mentality of we've got a brilliant chassis, we just need to get our engine upgraded a bit more to catch the Mercedes, and then Mercedes just thought crap, and then just worked on their aero and just leapt a full step forward?
I think after pre-season, Mercedes were worried about Ferrari's pace, and they worked relentlessly, just little updates, getting rid of their drag off their car, and look what it's done for them for this season.
Because I think the engine difference is all in the fuel, because Shell made a massive leap last year, which Ferrari admitted to, giving them an extra, can't even remember how much horsepower it was. But I reckon the engines are pretty the same between Mercedes and Ferrari now. It is literally the fuel and, the technical gubbins of how the fuel gets to the engine rather than raw power.
And you had a suspicion last year. I know this was this is before Tomo Podcast even launched. This was on Discord group about Ferrari burning oil, and obviously that loophole's shut now. Do you think they actually did do that, and that's why we're seeing a different Ferrari this year, because they've got no loophole to go about for oil burning, because of the fact that they've got to have a certain amount that goes into the engine, but they've got to have a certain amount by the end when the FIA check it out in scrutineering?
All I'm going to say is, do you see them doing it now? And do you see them winning?
It's true, you don't see a barbecue smoke coming out the back of the garage every time they start up.
I know they smoke when they first start up, but during the races, they were burning a lot of oil.
Yeah, you could see it coming out the back exhaust, couldn't you?
Mercedes also burnt oil last year, but they've obviously got a way around it. Not a way around it, that's one way to say. But they've learnt how to maybe get more
Efficient
horsepower in the higher modes than maybe Ferrari have got. Because Ferrari, in Q1 they were the fastest car, and then Q2 and Q3 when Mercedes turn it up, they don't have anything left. Yeah. They have nothing left.
It's nuts, isn't it? Absolutely nuts.
Well, it's like Michael Patterson said. He finds it shocking that Ferrari haven't won a race this year. No. He never thought he'd say it.
Absolutely nuts.
But on the other side, you should say that Mercedes have done a good job this year.
So Red Bull?
Yeah. Red Bull have
punching above their weight.
Every year.
Yeah, Max.
Every year, Red Bull are the team that improved the most during the season. They've done it again this year.
I'm a big fan of Red Bull. They do a lot for the sport, and they deserve some success.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not the biggest fan of Red Bull, but they've spiced up the championship this year, considering that Honda engine, of where that Honda engine's come from to where it is now. Yeah, you can't fault them. You can't fault them.
I think the Honda engine's not far off the rest of them. I think it's only about 50 horsepower, I'd say, maybe 100 horsepower at most, behind everybody else. But their car makes up for maybe the lack of horsepower.
Well, it's all the genius of Adrian Newey, isn't it, and his design team, and the fact that Honda and Red Bull have worked together, like I said in the last podcast, about bringing someone in from the outside. Honda brought someone in from the outside to help develop the engine, and they've probably managed to get it positioned where they get the best engine with the Red Bull type packaging.
Well, no, because Red Bull changed it, didn't they? Changed the packaging for this year.
Yep.
Red
They
Bull
said,
told
"You
Honda,
work it
you tell us where you want the engine, and we'll build around it.
My apologies. I stand corrected.
Even Lard knew that. Well on, Lard.
I've just
Yeah,
finished watching
but-
Drive to Survive as well, so I'm getting the information from what Christian Horner said.
My
Lard
thing would
could back
be-
me up for that one.
My thing would be is if Red Bull decided to package the car like they did when Renault was in the back there, how Honda would go on, whether they would have as many breakdowns as they did last year.
It's very possible. I think they would, because they, we know how Adrian Newey likes to design his car. He likes it as as thin as possible, as tightly packaged as you could possibly make it, and you can't do that with these engines.
No, they'll overcook.
Yeah,
But-
and I think that's what will happen next year if they try and make it tighter at the back.
We've still got to wait and see that, haven't we? Because Red Bull have still been having issues. It's not cost them a race yet, but Max has had drops out in power. So has Gasly. Qualifying modes haven't gone well and buggered up.
Well, some of those dropouts.
Yeah.
Some of those dropouts are caught, like the Max one in qualifying, was caused by the fact that he's got a lot more confidence in the car now since they brought the upgrade. He put his foot down, and the electronics of the engine couldn't cope with it.
What I'd say was last year. Remember when he was on a curb and the car delivered too much power and he span out?
Yeah.
Was the official story. I think it's the Red Bull electronics, because a lot of Daniel Ricciardo's DNFs were electronic issues.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think Red Bull need to step up their bit to help on. I
Yeah.
think there's something there which is causing issues.
Mhm.
Is that type packaging? Is that the where they're putting the wires in designing the car?
Mhm.
We don't know that, but they should know that.
Yeah.
Just in them races or qualifyings or poles, and that'll all add up in the end.
But I think that one of the main things that we can talk about with that is the battle that was up front with Hungary between Max, who was very, very unlucky not to win, and Hamilton, because it all kicked off on lap 49, didn't it? Lap 49 was where it all started from, and that was with the pit stop.
No. It started before that.
Well,
Go on,
pit stop
Lard. You
before.
turn. Go on, Lard.
It started when Hamilton made the move that didn't stick. That's when it started, because that's when Mercedes came in and went, "Hang on a minute, this is not going to work on these tires. Let's change it up a bit. Let's get him in for another one," and then bang, that was the moment.
Yeah,
But
James
that was
Brown
going to
made a
turn
good-
4, wasn't it? Turn 4, and he went wide, and he had to back off
Yeah.
to let Max through. Yeah.
Yeah, but that stint was impressive as well, because he was like 10 seconds behind, because that was like the first pit stop, and then he was right behind Max in 2 laps.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was like he'd made up 9 seconds on Max in 2 laps, and nobody taken a blind bit of notice. And it was like, Hamilton's behind us. It was like incredible pace, really.
Well, I worked. It took him 18 laps from lap 49 when the pit stop happened for him to take the lead. And what was it? 25 seconds? Is it about 25 seconds he was behind?
20 seconds for a lap in it, yeah. 20 seconds for a pit stop in it. I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was an incredible one, and then it was a case of Red Bull were damned if they did or damned if they didn't with the pit stop.
They had no once Hamilton come out, they had to stick with what they had. They had to stick. They knew it may work, but they also the cliff. If the cliff came along, they were just sitting ducks.
That was
Yeah,
lap
they had no
64 when it
choice.
happened. Go on, Emma. Sorry.
I said they had no choice. They had to give it a go and hope that it would work, but they knew it probably wouldn't. But you got to go for it, haven't you? And I admire that with them. They could have just said, "Sod it, we're not going to win it." They actually gave us a bit of a battle.
And Max wasn't exactly disappointed afterwards, was he?
No.
His maturity in his interview spoke loads about him. I mean, I wasn't a fan of him last year, but he's completely improved, hasn't he, this year?
Yeah.
Yeah, Mercedes had done their pure pit wall thing where they reviewed the race and the strategy. People can send in questions. they talked a lot about how that strategy came to be the second stop, and like Hamilton had to nail the outlap, so Max couldn't come in for another set of tyres.
Right.
So the one person you
Ferrari
want
were behind. Yeah,
the one person you want to nail on that lap would be Hamilton, because you know he can do it.
that's why they did it. They knew he could do it.
And there wasn't much pressure from behind from the Ferrari, so they got, it's a free pit stop in essence, wasn't it? Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Free stop, try and go for it. And if Red Bull had have pitted Verstappen, who's to say that Verstappen couldn't have caught Hamilton? We could have had a ding dong battle at the end anyway.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I'd just say Mercedes in free air seemed a lot quicker than Red Bull. So if Max had given up first place, I'm not sure he'd have caught back up.
Yeah.
It's one of those things now. We've got a good race, but it could have been a good race another way, but
Yeah.
I mean, it was, yeah. Like, considering, I was just having a look at the stats. There was only one retirement that whole race as well. Grosjean, the only retirement. Do we know
Why did he
retire?
retire?
yeah, why did we retire?
I didn't actually see anything on the coverage. He just
No, I just saw him come in. Sky just said there he is retiring.
Yeah,
That's
they
where
wheeled the
he's on
car
time.
in, didn't they?
Yeah.
Henry, do you want to check that out from the pit lane?
I will have a look now for you.
Cool.
Should we talk about the track news? I know it's not to do with Hungary, but do you want to talk about the track news?
Oh, we can talk about track news. Everyone else happy with track news?
Yep.
Just quickly. So Mexico's been confirmed till 2022,
Nice.
really? And it will be named from 2020 as the Mexico City Grand Prix.
Oh. The Mexico City Grand Prix.
interesting.
Yes.
Yeah, that is interesting, isn't it?
It's going to stay till at least 2022, and I think a deal's been done so they can have 22 races. Don't quote me on that. I'm just saying.
No, I've seen something about 22 races as well.
But
No.
obviously, Germany's still the favourite to drop off the calendar. But the Mexico City mayor said the 3-year agreement was based on a new financing model without the use of public resources.
Nice.
Blimey.
The Mexico City government will be an intermediary, creating a trust that will raise the private investment required to deliver this international event, she said.
Obviously been a lot of interest then.
It's always sold out, though, isn't it? I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like Mexico.
Sorry, well, I interrupted you. What was that, sorry?
I just like Mexico.
Yeah.
I think it's a great track, to be honest.
I love the baseball stadium. I love the stadium part. I think it's great.
It's given us good racing. It looks good on telly. It looks good for the fans that are sitting in there. And it just has a great atmosphere. So what's not to love?
Yeah.
Grosjean, they diagnosed the problem as a water pressure issue that could not be remedied. There you go.
Right. Okay. So let's talk very quickly. Let's go through our scores on the doors for that race. Henry, let's start with you this time round. What will you give that?
I don't know you were going to start with me.
I don't know.
7. 7,
Seven.
mate.
7. Emma?
I'd say for me a 7, but in general 6.
Okay. Will?
Yeah, keeping on the good vibes. I'd give it a good 7, a solid 7.
Lard?
I'm going to go a little bit higher. I'm going to go 7.5.
You calm down, lad. You calm down, son.
That is exactly what I've got there as well. 7.5 out of 10 I've gone for.
Michael Patterson says 7 as well.
You pedantic buggers.
Hey, I showed that on camera. I didn't write that down. I did write it down.
You didn't
It's
show
all
it on
there.
camera, mate.
I did
I
show it
hope
on
you didn't
camera.
show it on camera. It's against TOS, isn't it? Do you know what I mean?
Oh, shush. So let's talk right before we've literally got to wrap up in what's my times? I've got time.
10 minutes.
Yeah, 10 minutes.
We
10
got 10
minutes.
minutes. So
Yeah.
we probably won't have a break. We'll go straight to the feature. So let's go quickly through the prediction scorecard because it's all change. Well, that's not really, but there's things going on. So after 11 rounds, because it helps if I actually put 11 rounds up there rather than 10. I see I'm doing everything at the top. I'll flip what we're doing. There we go. Live editing.
He's broken it.
Okay, so here's as follows. So in last place, but only just joined, is Emma with 37. Then in fifth, we've got Lard with 43. Henry in fourth on 44. I'm on 45.5. Jay is on 48. And well out into the lead is Lard with 62 points.
Well done, Lard. Well done, Lard.
Going into the break.
Well done, Lard.
Well done, lads.
Have I done it again? Oh, fucking hell. What is wrong with me today?
Oh dear. So there's double Lard on the scorecard as well, Alan, yeah?
I would like to announce this time my retirement from the Turn 1 podcast. Fucking hell. I hope I get a better part 2. Really do.
Can I
That's
just
doubtful. That is so doubtful.
I'm sorry, lad. Will is well in the lead. Sorry, everybody.
Disclaimer, he's not sorry. He's not sorry.
No.
There's a bit of news I do want to say before
Go
we do head on. You were saying that Alonso hasn't won a championship with McLaren. Now, next year, that may be different because
yeah.
McLaren have entered IndyCar season for 2020, the full season they're going to be a part of. So you never know. I think Alonso is going to be one of the drivers in that team.
They have. It's going to be called the Arrow McLaren Racing SP and field 2 Chevrolet powered cars in the 2020 NTT IndyCar Series.
What's her name?
What?
What?
You call that a name? It sounds like a games console.
SP.
He's gonna be home with his console playing it for the internet, isn't he?
Future driving.
So, before we disappear, we're going to go very quickly through the drivers' table. So this is how it looks so far going into the summer break. So Hamilton is still leading the F1 Drivers' Championship with 250 points. Valtteri Bottas is second with 188. Then it comes Max Verstappen up to third with 181. Sebastian Vettel and Charles Leclerc fourth and fifth with Pierre Gasly in 63. Carlos Sainz is only 5 points behind Pierre Gasly in 7th, with Kimi Raikkonen in 8th, Danny Kvyat in 9th, and Lando Norris in 10th. Bottom, and it's Danny Ricciardo in 11th with Lance Stroll in 12th, Kevin Magnussen in 13th, sharing Lance Stroll's points, but Lance Stroll's higher up because of positions. Nico Hulkenberg in 14th with 17, Alexander Albon with 15. With 16 points in 15th. Then it's Perez, Grosjean, Antonio Giovinazzi, Kubica and Russell. And it means the teams look like this as well. Mercedes on top with 438 points, with Ferrari lagging behind on 288 points. Only 44 points in front of Red Bull Racing, with McLaren leading the best of the rest, 82 points, with Toro Rosso 43, Renault in 6th with 39, and Alfa Romeo and Racing Point not far on their heels. Haas with 26 points, and Williams down there with a solitary point, but off the mark.
If Red Bull had kept Ricciardo, they could have been second.
You know what's really depressing?
Go on.
What's that?
Hamilton has nearly outscored Ferrari for Mercedes on his own with 250.
That's ominous. That's very ominous considering the second half season.
He's dropped 50 points in 12 races. And that was one Germany, which was a disaster.
Oh my gosh, yeah, it's 38 points difference between Hamilton and Ferrari. My gosh. Wow. There was
that really did amuse me, that.
There was supposed to be a part 2 to this podcast, and I don't think we've got enough time to really give it that justification to go through it. So, are we okay to hold off on this other part until the next podcast? Make that part of our main news. Do that from start, because we've got a summer break. Emma, I'm pointing this one at you.
I don't mind.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
I want to spend time on this subject. So it's about the W Series. We want to spend some time on this, some quality time on this, rather than just skim it over in the 5 minutes before we have to wrap up. Is that all right with the rest of you guys? Oh, go on, Will.
We can do a full review. We can do a full review then, because it'll be over.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
We'll try and put something together especially for it. There we go.
Yeah, so we'll do a special Turn 1 podcast based on the W Series. So look out for that one. That's going to be a good one, that. So I suppose there's something new that I'm doing. We always try something new on the first series of a podcast. But before we go back to everything, here's a little taster of what is coming up after the summer. Well, from here on in. Give me back in. Well, I'll be back in about 30 seconds. But just watch this.
Into the F1 show, there's more and more people that turn up. This year there was just so many people, and the atmosphere was just absolutely amazing.
I started to feel my heart pounding harder and harder, a case of nausea coming through me, feeling like I needed to throw up as I approached the slip road to join the circuit. Could I do this? Was I going to do this?
My granddad was a big F1 fan. And I used to watch it with him every time that we could, and it just kind of stuck.
So that's coming up over the next few weeks. For those of you who are watching live, stay tuned. We've got a cracking interview coming up, and that is between, well, you've just seen it on what's coming up. It's Emma being interviewed by Will. Everyone, thanks for joining me today. Apologies if I've not been on my best behaviour.
I just want to say to Lard that, well done on doing this with Emma.
Thank you, Will. It's very much appreciated.
I think fantasy football, going to bed at 1 o'clock on the morning on a Thursday night, just really screwed my head up, man. I think that's what it was.
1 o'clock?
It's fantasy football auction. I'll talk about it off the air. But thank you ever so much. Anyone who's watching, stay tuned. We are going to be still going live. But for the purposes of the podcast, everyone, thank you ever so much for being on board.
No worries.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Pleasure.
And until next time, hopefully I'll still be here. If not, Emma's taking over. We'll see you next time. Take care. Bye-bye.
Yeah.
They can hear now. They can
Oh,
hear
good.
everything now. Right.
Tracky, you bastard. Leave Henry alone.